Valencia's looking a little grayer and more England-like than I expected. Well, at least it's not windy. So, slight change of plans. No Valencia. I'd actually be about 40 minutes into my run if I was in Valencia right now. Instead, I am 50 minutes away from my run starting in Chichester. So, slight family emergency and switched it up to Chichester race today. It's still a marathon, but the biggest difference, let's see, will be not through the city, but 11 laps around the Goodwood track. Total elevation is like 470 feet, I think, compared to about 170 with Valencia. I don't think the elevation will be a huge thing, but I might regret that statement later. The biggest difference, I think, is going to be the wind. So I'm interested to see what this looks like. According to the reports, it was going to be like 14, 15 mile per hour winds. The only positive was it looked like the wind will be at my back during the slight uphills and at my front during the slight downhills. So maybe that all equals out. But time to go get my bib on, get out there for a little warm up, and get this race going. Post-race Mike here. Once I got out of the car, I didn't get a lot of footage with commentary, so I'll just take you through how the rest of the day went. It was maybe 8:10, so I thought I had a lot of time left. But once I went to the toilet, where they only had 3 toilets, by the time I got out, I was actually doing high kicks and stretching out my quads on my walk to the start of the marathon. So the marathon got underway. Thanks to I Run Daily and Running South Coast for some of these clips that I can put in here so that we can see a little bit more of what the weather looked like that day. So the first 10K were actually really good for understanding how it was going to work that day. One, it was pouring, so I decided to wear a hat, which I don't normally do. Here's actually a picture of me, the happiest and driest I was that day. But every time I would be running on the northbound section, I would speed up to something like 7:05 or 4:25 pace. And then whenever I was running on the southbound section where the wind was in my face, even though that was technically downhill, that would be a much, much slower portion where I'd be running maybe more like 7:20 pace or 4:35 Ks. The first few laps were actually quite empty. So when I'm running on those portions, it was just kind of out by myself. Occasionally there'd be a group or a person, but inevitably you'd kind of separate from them fairly quickly. But then after 2 or 3 laps, they started releasing all the other races. So all of a sudden there would be a ton of people out there, which was nice in a way. They might block some wind, but at the same time, they're running crazy different paces. Some people are running a 10K and they're running really, really fast. Other people are just jogging quite slowly. So now you're dodging people a lot more. So pros and cons to that as we would go through that whole process. Puddles started to collect more, so I was noticing my shoes felt heavier. I don't know. Anyone else run in the rain and notice that their shoes feel heavier? I looked up after if shoes really soak up that much water, and it seemed like not that much, but I can tell you they started feeling heavier to me. So that was certainly something that I was looking into. I did notice my left toe started to hurt after a few miles, so I knew that was definitely going to be an issue for tomorrow, but I just told myself you don't need a toe to run. And knew it would eventually feel a little better. And sure enough, by about 11 miles, it just went numb. So whatever was the problem was going to be a problem for the next day. So overall, I was feeling pretty strong coming through the half marathon at like 1:34 and change, and felt pretty good at that point, but knew I still had a pretty long way to run. But I actually have to go out for my run now. So why don't we pick it up there? I was at 21K half marathon, 1:34, still felt good. And then all of a sudden by about 28K, things started not feeling quite as fresh. And I was looking down and my watch started bouncing around. At first, it was like 4:35 a K, and then 4:40 a K. And they were feeling about the same, but I obviously was not moving as fast anymore. And pretty soon I'm at 31K, and it starts reading like 4:55. And I came to realize one of the issues with putting this in Ks was, yes, I knew my target pace well, but I had no idea what Ks meant once I got way off my target. So once it got to like 5:10, I was like, I know that's slower than 8, but I don't really know how much slower. So it certainly added an aspect to it all. And then adding to it, there's so many other races going on. And one of the guys that I knew was either doing the marathon or the 50K, he would come bounding by me so ridiculously fast. Just looked like he was experiencing different gravity. And looked it up after, he ran a 2:50 50K. So under 5:30 a mile for 50K. And I found a clip of him running on YouTube, which, yeah, that was his form for 50K, just bouncing through the whole thing. But anyway, it became obvious to me I was really slowing down, and I couldn't quite do the math on where this was going to net me out in terms of times. But once I realized 3:15 wasn't really possible anymore, I lost all motivation around times and started kind of trying to figure it out. But hamstrings were so tight that I think that's obviously my weakest link, and I need to have a really strong hamstring plan going into the spring. If you've dealt with really sore hamstrings as a limiting factor, drop a comment below and let me know what you did, because I need some advice there. I'm thinking maybe massages, but I'm not sure what exercises I should be doing for that. But ran into someone else from my club who was running. I had passed him earlier in the race, but now he was catching up to me, one lap behind me, but still catching up. He tried to motivate me a little to keep moving, but once I was doing some of the general math and feeling how horrible I felt finishing my 4th fastest or something marathon on a looped course in Chichester, really was not motivating me. And then the fact that I was going to run back out on 2 more loops of this and be miles away from the end made me just at that point say, I think I'm going home now. So incredibly disappointed, but now comes the next round of planning and figuring out what I am going to do in the spring. I have Cambridge Half Marathon, so I'm definitely doing that and trying to figure out what my spring marathon should be. So if you have any ideas, drop a comment for that as well. Would love to know. I've seen a few potential options. But out on my first run back, excited to be running again, and we will go again soon.